Okay, creating a chessboard is rather simple. It's going to involve a lot of patterning, rectangular and circular patterning. So let's just go ahead and create a new standard IPT. And I'm going to use the origin XZ plane so I can build this thing from the ground up, make a sketch. And I'm going to rotate this so that the top is facing up. I just like it that way. And I'm going to grab my rectangle tool. I'm going to draw a rectangle. Now before I click to end the rectangle, I'm going to input the values that I want. This chessboard is going to be 2 by 2 inch per square, so each square on the chessboard will be 2 by 2, so that means that this thing is going to be 16 by 16 since there are 8 squares going in either direction. So right now I'm going to fill in those numbers. I'm going to put 16, and then I'm going to tab over to the other number, which is on the right here, and I'm going to put 16 in here too. So now I've got a 16 by 16 square. You can also just make a square and dimension it later. Now I'm going to dimension the square so that it's right over the top of this point. And the reason that I want to do this is so that I have planes intersecting this board, and that it'll be really easy for me to do patterns on this board when I want to create my individual themed design. Now if your square is outside of this border, like let's say that you made it out here and it's not over the top of this point, there are two ways to correct it. You can either grab it and just pull it over so that it's kind of in the middle, or you can dimension it from this line to here and do it halfway. If I were to say, because I want this point to be 8 inches away from this line, if I go and make it here 8 inches, it's going to push it out. So I'm going to undo that. If I were to dimension it from here and make it 8 inches, then it's going to push this line towards the dot. So I'm going to make this 8 inches, and I'm going to make it 8 inches away in this direction as well. So now I've got a 16 by 16 square with it right over the center of the origin point, dimensioning from this here to the point and this line to the point. Finish the sketch, go to isometric view, and now I'm just going to extrude out this square. And I'm actually just going to do it at an inch because I like this size and I can always add to it later. So I'm just going to make this 1 inch high. You can make it higher than that if you'd like, but I like 1 inch, so I'm just going to choose 1. Now we have to make the individual squares, so I'm going to make a sketch on the top of this face, and I'm going to grab my rectangle tool and lock on to the bottom right corner of my chessboard, click, and start making my square. And I'm going to put in the values right now. I'm going to put in 2 and then hit tab and then do 2 again, enter. Now I've got a 2 by 2 square. One thing that I like to do is get rid of these yellow border lines, because then it'll be easier to select our individual squares when we're actually ready to go. So I'm going to right click this yellow line and delete it. You don't have to do this step. You can skip this step and it'll still work. It's just a little hard to grab hold of the individual squares for extrusion if you don't delete them. So I'm just going to delete all these. And start my rectangular pattern. So rectangular pattern, and I need to select my geometry, so I'm just going to draw a box over this square so that I have it selected, and then I'm going to choose which direction I want it to go. I want it to go along this line, but it's actually going the wrong way. So if your arrow is pointing this way, then we want it to go up, so I'm just going to flip the direction. If your arrow is already going this way, then that step is unnecessary. And I want to space these out so that they're not right next to each other, but that it skips a square in between. So I'm going to put these, I'm going to make 4 of them, and I'm going to make the spacing between them 4 inches. That way, I've got these skipping a square each time. So it's going to be a square, skip a section that will be empty, and then make a new square. And I'm also going to choose direction 2, click this line, and I see that my arrow is pointing in the wrong direction again, so I'm just going to flip it. And I'm going to copy the settings, 4 and 4. Click OK. Now I've got part of my grid going, but I'm only halfway there. I need to make another square right here. So I'm going to make a rectangle. This time I don't really have to measure it, I just have to lock on. So I'm going to lock onto the corner here with the green dot, and then lock it onto the diagonal corner with a green dot. And I'm going to do the exact same rectangular pattern I just did. Choose rectangular pattern, so select my geometry, You can either individually click these lines, or you can just go in the middle of this box and draw a box around what you want. And now I see that I have my new square selected. So I'm going to choose direction 1. I'm going to click on any of these lines going up and down. My arrow's going the wrong way again, so I'm going to flip it. And I'm going to do the same pattern style. 4 times 4 inches apart. Direction 2, I'm going to choose a line going on the horizontal. This time my arrow is actually going in the right direction, so I don't have to flip it. And 4 times 4 inches apiece. Click OK. And now I've got a checkerboard pattern with empty spaces in between all of them. So I'm going to hit Finish Sketch. Now I can extrude these squares. So I'm going to extrude all the diagonal squares. So it's easy if you just go in a diagonal pattern all the way down the side like this. And I'm not going to do them to 1 inch. I'm going to do them very, very small. I'm going to do them to 0.000001. So that's 5 zeros and a 1. Because all I want is for them to be at a different level so that I can change their color on the fly. Now that I've altered my number, I have to go back here and select more for my profile. So now I'm going to select these diagonal lines. And I'm just going to go down diagonally until all of them are selected. Now I need to go on the other side. And if you choose, or you want to make sure that you're clicking very carefully, otherwise you may click the wrong thing and then you'll have to start over. Alright, so now all of my ones are selected, and you can actually see the pattern from the top view. It looks right. You should have stripes of diagonal lines. Click OK. And no change has been made, or it would seem. There are all these squares here. If I wanted to, I could change either the squares or these squares. Because changing the extrusion right here will actually change the color. You don't have to change them on here. Let's say you wanted these to stay gray and you wanted to make this one black. I could right click this extrusion, go to Properties, choose As Body, and let's say we make them black. So now we've got our extrusion is black. I can go into Extrusion 2, right click it, and go to Properties, and I could change this color too. Let's say I wanted it to be sky blue. So now I've got a blue and black checkerboard. So this is my first set of squares, and this is my second set of squares. Even though this is just a big block, this will change every other square because our other extrusion is going to stay put.